How are you this morning, everybody?
Good. Good morning.
Yeah, fantastic.
Did you guys? Did I just hear y'all talking about that? It's pretty nice there. It's windy, but you've got pretty good temperatures.
Yes, today it's supposed to be in isn't it, Jennifer, in the upper 60s, and they're talking 70s tomorrow?
Upper 60s, then we got some 70s the next day or two, and then we'll see. There's the possibility of a little winter storm deciding to tease us with the concept of white Christmas, but I don't think we're going to have it. So we'll see.
Well, and one little sign that we notice when the geese start moving, that means there's something going to come in. And I just actually saw a whole bunch this morning fly in. And you're like,
yep, okay. They're pretty smart.
They really are.
Oh, no. Well, we're going to be driving here. You know, as a matter of fact, next Tuesday, I'll actually be in Kansas City.
Awesome.
So it's like, gosh, wouldn't it be fun to meet up and have it live?
That'd be cool.
Totally.
Yeah, very, very fun. As a matter of fact, we're going to leave a day early so that I will actually be there and not try to do it on the road. Those ones on the road are a little harder to manage.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what did y'all do? I always love giving a little bit of time for people to get on and say good morning and say hi, find out who's out there. I was, as y'all may or may not know, if you saw my Facebook, I did a couple posts that I was in New Orleans and Baton Rouge first, and then New Orleans, and went down to Bourbon Street. I hadn't been down there probably 25 years, but it was fun. Had beignets at Cafe du Monde, and you know, it's funny how you remember things. You know, it's like they were good. You know, they were really good, but they were not what I remembered them to be. You know, so they were a little heavier. I always remember beignets being really light and fluffy, like melt in your mouth. Is how I remember them. And they were really good and yummy, but they were more dense. They were more like eating a cake donut, more that kind of consistency. But we enjoyed it. And one of the funniest things, I love it how I get, somebody's calling me from Austria. Don't you love that? That's my first.
It's your one little cousin.
And I don't know anybody there, so I can't. That's a random call right there. But it was so fun. We were just standing there in line because it was a fairly long line. And coming down the street, we heard this band coming down the street, and musicians were playing. The band's coming, and there's a bride and a groom in their attire, the lady in her big white dress, and they're just dancing to this band down the street. And I've seen it in movies where they do funerals. You know, they have the big procession at the funeral, but I had never seen it for a wedding. So it was really kind of cool. I thought, now that's really something special to remember that.
That's cool.
That is.
Very cool.
And good morning, Karen. She said happy birthday. So we might as well put it out there officially right now. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Okay, I got my clapper. Whoa! But it's kind of coming apart, Jennifer.
It kind of is. We may have to make you something new.
Yes, Jennifer bedazzled me while we were there having our meetings.
That's cool.
Okay, so we're gonna sing, Jennifer. I didn't ask.
Oh no, I don't sing. You know this. Okay, I'm gonna allow you to sing. I'm gonna enjoy your voice.
And I'm gonna sing the different. My favorite birthday song. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, birthday to you. I'm singing happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, birthday to you. Woo!
Hey,
woo! Start your day off good. What are you doing for your birthday today?
Well, I have my once a year coffee.
Ooh.
And then
once a year, huh?
Well, I gave it up, and I said I will give it up with the exception of maybe birthday and Christmas. I haven't decided on Christmas, but yeah, I love peppermint mochas, but they don't love me. So yeah, I do my my coffee, and then I'm going out with a friend, and then what we traditionally do in the family is we pick a special dinner and dessert and hang out, and so nothing. It's very low key. So,
that's nice. It's nice to just remember it. Hey, being with family is all good.
Yes.
I personally think birthday weeks and months are nice.
There you go. I love it.
And go out to lunch or something with various friends along the way.
And I always put, when I need the kids to do something, I always add because it's my birthday month or it's my birthday week. Yes.
Yeah, you know.
Do
So,
this because it's my birthday month. Yes.
exactly. Oh gosh. Well, this morning, so hi Karen and hi Bet. And let me get rid of this. I've got a little side panel here that's interrupting my vision. Oh, very good. There's Kathy. Kathy was hidden underneath my little box of it. Good morning, and she says happy birthday also. In fact, let me do this, my little special thing I learned how to do last week. Ta-da! There we go. And Lisa's here. Good morning. Here's Karen with another happy birthday. That is good morning. Love Christmas. Oh, you like the ornament. Thank you. Like the earrings this morning. Well, this morning, so you know, this month, this Advent season, actually, we are everything all about Christmas. That's what our whole thing is about. And this week in particular, we're talking about what is Advent. And we were talking a little bit before. And so before you started, Laura, I was raised Baptist. We never did any, I really didn't even recognize hardly the words Advent. It was just Christmas season. And I can't imagine that, you know, I mean, every Sunday going, that if they were doing it, I would have noticed. And so I really didn't know that until I started going to the Presbyterian Church. And Presbyterian Church does recognize it and has special readings and lighting the Advent candle and all. What about you, Jennifer? Is that something you? I'm
born and raised Catholic, so definitely Advent was the season. And when I was teenage years on, I actually did the readings at Sunday Mass. So always the special readings and the lighting of the candle, the ceremony that goes with that, and then leading into the Epiphany. So that was a big time of year for us. So yes.
Yeah,
you could probably fill us in. I mean, I was born and raised Catholic, but I haven't been, we've been non-denominational for, oh gosh, I was going to say decades. That sounds like I'm old because I'm only 26. But
a couple of years. Yeah.
But, you know, at least in the Catholic Church, I don't know what you guys do, Delinda, with the Presbyterian, you know, the garments that the priests wear coincide with each Sunday. And, you know, it's funny. As a kid, our family wasn't really big into it. So, you know, oh, he's wearing purple. Oh, he's wearing, you know, red. Oh, he's wearing green. But those all had significance tying into whether it was Advent or whatever.
Yep. So they all have a specific meaning. Color is very big. And a lot of people don't understand the wreath itself, you know, has the 4 candles. One is pink, and that one is lit on the third weekend to celebrate that we're halfway there. That is the celebration, and the priest will wear a pink vestment. So,
pink. Yep, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool, all of that, you know.
Yeah, it's true. So, Laura, Laura, tell us just a little bit, because you are also a pastor. Can you tell us a little bit about you being a pastor?
Well, I was ordained. I was ordained about 2 years. It's going on 2 years ago. Back in February, and I decided to take that step because I knew eventually that I would do a ministry, and I speak here and there at different. Actually, next month I'll be speaking at a church, but my ministry right now is I'm working on what I do with the natural wellness and the gardening. I'm working with a few people that we're trying in our little town here to, feed the less fortunate, and then also set up city gardens or that kind of thing. So that's what we're doing right now. And that's, I just thought, I'm going to have a ministry. I decided to get ordained. And I also had a friend that she's like, if I ever get married, I want you to marry me. And I'm like, okay, now I can. I have the piece of paper.
Gotcha. So well, tell us about Advent, because I know then that you have looked into that a little bit, and we'll chime in wherever. And Jennifer will have a lot to add. Because
I was going to say, I'm excited that she will be able to participate in this a little bit more than, but basically in my research and then the little bit I know, I always attach Advent with the Catholic or Orthodox churches because they're a little more traditional, and they have more liturgical types of approaches. But Advent comes from the word, it's called Adventus, and that's a Latin word, which means coming. And it's usually 4 weeks. And they, in my little research, they said it starts on the first Sunday that's the closest to November 30th, and it goes up to Christmas. And basically, I looked back. I'm a history buff, so I had to look back at the historical thing, and there wasn't a lot. Historical scholars said they can kind of trace it back to the 3rd or 4th century, to Spain and Gaul, where Advent led up to, like Jennifer said, the Feast of the Epiphany. Some of the research, they said, no, it was a 40-day fasting in that preparation to get to the feast. But they also talked about, it also was leading up to the celebration of the baptism of new believers. So the new believers would be baptized on the Feast of the Epiphany, which in my research, they said most of them said January 6th. Some denominations do January 15th. So I found that to be really interesting. And then for people that don't know what the Feast of the Epiphany is, and I don't know, do the Presbyterians recognize that?
Yeah, and it was the first time I'd ever even heard the word.
Yeah, and I'm really clueless who does what.
So funny. Like,
yeah. Epiphany means revelation. And the Feast of the Epiphany, basically, and Jennifer, help me out here if you want to add something, they're celebrating the revelation of Christ as the Savior coming, because Advent really is a preparation. It's 2 parts. It's a preparation of waiting for the Messiah to come, and then from that point, he's here. Now it's waiting for the second coming. So this part, the Feast of the Epiphany, is leading up to,
now he's here. When is the next time he's going to come? Even though, and it also for us, again, this is what I remember as a child, especially, we always understood, or was explained to us, that's also when the wise men came. Because the wise men came after Jesus was born. They were not there the night he was born. And I always was under the understanding that the Epiphany feast came out of a lot of the Eastern religions, because that's where it is believed that the wise men came from. So it was kind of a celebration of their entering into the story of the birth of Jesus. And
yes, and they even said in the research, it's not only a revelation Jesus is here as the Messiah for the Jewish people. It was a revelation, because the angels showed up with the shepherds, and then these foreigners came, and they said, the Magi, wise men or kings, whatever, and it's funny because they intertwine nobody can decide if they were wise men or kings, but they would be like astrologers in our time, the best definition, but they studied the stars and they knew Jewish history. Now, there's a theory that they could have been Jewish. I don't, but like you were saying, Jennifer, they were from the East. So the assumption is they might not have been. Right. But, and they didn't get there, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't get to see Jesus until he was about 2 years old, because it took them quite a while.
Correctly. Yeah. And again, and that's where, and for us doing our nativity set, the wise men were never put into the nativity set until the Feast of the Epiphany. Our family, that is our tradition. We never put the wise men there and actually baby Jesus was put in Christmas Eve, and then the wise men
come later. That's good. You've got some great traditions.
That's what we do.
I have to change some of mine. So
it made it where it was very much more a different story, and for us going through, and that makes sense what you're talking about historically, that the baptisms would have occurred probably after Christmas. Because back then, as we're dealing with a new church, a new faith, all of that going, and the prophesizing that would have occurred, having a priest or a minister at the time would have been a priest, but being able to travel around, probably, gathering people together, you're not going to have a gathering every Sunday just back then. It just wouldn't have happened. So
makes it just super interesting. And then you were talking about the wreath. So the wreath has traditionally 4 candles. Some people do 5, but basically the wreath is, and do you guys do a wreath? Jennifer, do you put out a wreath?
Yeah.
I was going to say we had a wreath, but we never lit candles or anything. My mom just had a wreath on the piano. I don't, it's funny. I guess we didn't pay attention to that as others did, but it's made out of evergreens, which that basically symbolizes everlasting life. Excuse me, in the midst of like winter and death. I mean, and here's one thing I had forgotten about and heard this years ago. Christmas, December 25th, is the darkest day on the calendar. So isn't it cool that we celebrate the coming of Christ, the light in the world, on the darkest day on the calendar? I mean, that kind of thing. So anyways, had to throw that in there. So the evergreens represent everlasting life. The circle of the wreath reminds us basically of God's eternal love, or unending love and eternal life, that he has made possible through Christ's coming. Pine cones was another thing. I've never seen them with pine cones, but
yeah, we never had pine cones.
No pine cones. Yeah, that symbolized just the newness of life that Jesus brought through his resurrection. And then, like you talked about, the candles. There's 3 purple and 1 pink, or 1. I saw in my research some people were like rose, and so candles in general. The purple represents repenting and preparation, and then the pink represents rejoicing. And then the flame on the candle also has a symbolic, Christ is the light of the world. That's an easy to go to. But when you look at the candles, so as we were talking about, Advent is 4 Sundays. The first candle that is lit is a purple candle, and that is called the prophet's candle. And like Isaiah talked about, it's Isaiah 7:14 talks about, it says, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." I mean, that kind of sounds prophetic to me. You also have in Genesis 3:15, God promised to send the Savior, defeat sin and defeat Satan. So we've got our prophecies. And so that candle on that first Sunday represents, the hope that the Messiah is going to be coming. The second candle is purple again, and that one is called the Bethlehem Candle. Micah in the Bible foretold that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, which also is the birthplace of David. And it symbolizes that candle symbolizes preparation again for the coming king. And then I stumbled upon something really cool that kind of ties into that. Bethlehem back in that time was notorious for having they were the suppliers of, for lack of a better description, of the unblemished lambs that they would sacrifice in the temple. And they would take the unblemished lamb and put it into the manger. The manger back then wasn't, we always see this it's like a lean-to with hay in it. Actually, mangers in Bethlehem were carved out of stone, and they were pretty deep. They were probably 2 or 3 feet deep. So they would put that unblemished lamb in there for protection, from any of those beasts that want to eat the lamb or whatever, So I the symbolism just in that was unblemished lamb until it was time to sacrifice the lamb. So that's a little historical on the Bethlehem there. And that's your second purple candle. The third candle, like Jennifer was saying, they call it the shepherd's candle. And this is, it symbolizes joy. Jesus came humble, they laid him in a manger. It represents rejoicing, joyfulness. The fourth candle is purple again. And that actually is called the angel's candle. And that represents when the angels came to the shepherds to announce what was going to happen. And this kind of symbolizes, God brought people, Gentiles, into the fold. Basically, they announced to the shepherds. I don't know if the shepherds were Jewish or not. I'm guessing maybe not. Who knows? But the shepherds were at the bottom of the totem pole. They were the, nobody. They didn't have, I don't know if they had rights or any of that, but, they were the poor of the poor. They were always out in the fields. Nobody, paid attention to them or whatever was going on there. But that purple represents the culmination of God's love through the Messiah. So traditionally is the 4 candles. Occasionally you'll see a white candle in the middle. And that's, the research said it's optional. And that represents, that's Christ's candle. And it's usually lit on either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I've seen both. But that, of course, represents pure light and victory. God has sent the Savior. And then it also is, we start preparing for the second coming. So I found it all fascinating. And, just growing up Catholic, not paying attention, obviously, to Advent as much as I probably should have. It was just neat. It's a really cool observation to have that. It's very symbolic. God communicates to us in symbols all over the place. I was just like, I remember the manger piece, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then you look at and tie that into the Advent. It's pretty cool.
It is. And it's so much of where our traditions come from. Back when you talk about the evergreen, that's, the Christmas tree. We talk about the candles. Back before we had electricity, candles went on Christmas trees and were lit Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, or depending on whatever the tradition is. We've now converted that into Christmas lights. And again, we talked last week of driving through the plaza and looking at just neighborhoods and seeing that symbolism, and we've brought it forth. The one thing I wish we would bring back is the 12 days of Christmas, which technically starts on Christmas Day and runs to the Epiphany. And if you go back and if you watch old shows about King Henry and that in Tudor time, and that's what they celebrate. And it was 12 days of gift giving, because they did fast those 4 weeks before Christmas. Kind of like we do through Lent. It was a traditional thing that they actually would fast. And now, and then that was the big celebration, because that was a 12 days of feasting and celebrating. So
very cool.
Yeah, because I think up until just in the last, 5 or 10 years, did I realize that the 12 days of Christmas were starting on Christmas. I always thought, well, what is it? The 12 days before? When does it start? It was never anything done at church or whatever. So when I learned, I thought, well, that's kind of cool.
One of my smart alecky children said, so the Advent calendar doesn't represent you open it up for chocolate?
Yeah.
No.
No. And I think that was a way to keep kids excited, to be honest, and more than likely tied in with the fasting aspect of it too. A little bit of, you get a little treat for being good, whatever, and a little something. The other thing my mom did, or has always done, and I just loved it. And again, if you talk to any of my almost 30 cousins on my dad's side, specifically, they all remember this, is she made a birthday cake for baby Jesus. And we did not start our Christmas celebration at my grandma's whenever we were able to be there for Christmas. It was always my mom walking out with a 9x13, a little manger made out of popsicle sticks, the lean-to like you're talking, the little plastic manger scene on the cake, but a birthday candle. And whoever was the youngest kid around kind of got to blow out the candle for baby Jesus. So
that's cool. Very cool.
Great. I did that with my kids. I have to say, not every Christmas. I don't know when I started it or when I stopped it or whatever, but it was always really cool. And we did not do that growing up. I'm trying to think in my head now, how can I start? Because my grandkids are young enough that I really could begin this. So it wouldn't have to be,
it's never too late.
So in our dinner, that's the day after Christmas. We could do that. I could do the cake and say, so then they could begin to associate that this is what they do with grandma.
And if you're not able to be together and you're doing a Zoom call or something, then you make sure they each have a cupcake with a candle they can blow out, and you all sing happy birthday. Right. And yeah, there's ways of making this work. And again, I like your concept, Dr. Laura, what you said of it's never too late. We can always add in a new something going, we're going to try this year. Let's have some fun and add a new tradition. Yeah.
And it is because as the world keeps changing and our lives change and where we live and all of those things, and listening to you guys talk, and as we talk about these things, like, okay, now I really like that. So how can I incorporate that in? Yeah, we can just keep. I'm a tweaker, so
I love how different, denominations celebrate the different parts of and I'm just going to call it a Christian calendar. Whether it's Easter, obviously Lent and Advent are very big for those in the Catholic faith, and obviously some others went ahead and adopted those and things. But it's interesting to see what is important and what the focus is on and what Bible verses they bring out and the symbolisms. And I love learning that. For me, that has been a fascinating journey that I've been on of trying to learn more and more and about the Jewish faith and about these different faiths in the world, just so I understand where they're all coming from and where they're at and in their journeys and such. So,
and then in the Jewish faith too, I mean, that's foundational to what, we're just a continuation of that, because we're on the other side of Messiah. And it's just so fascinating, like that manger of what that represented. And that just ties into, you're like, gosh, God, that's so cool. There's all these little, he's always subtle, or, you find these symbolisms all over. And like you say, different denominations focus on different things. And I think that just enriches all of us, because we're all, we all follow Jesus. We're all Christian. So let's not divide by traditions or interpretations.
My dad always said that we're on the same highway going to the same destination. We're just some of us are in a bus, some are in a car, some are in a truck. It's okay.
That's a really good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and so there's no reason to be upset. There's no reason to be jealous. And you can hop in and out. I mean, and learn. Again, there is nothing wrong with that learning and enriching, which I think is so important.
Right. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, here we are, almost at the top of the hour. Just within a couple of minutes, it just always just goes so fast. And I do. Let's see, how do I say this? It's interesting, and kind of goes off what you were saying, Laura, is that sometimes we think, oh, what an interesting or what a coincidence. Like, no, these didn't just by happenstance. When you see the thread that goes through and how, like you said, the little surprise is like, oh my gosh, now that makes so much sense. So that whole learning piece, like you say, Jennifer, and it does, it really is nice. And it's been, we've been visiting, as y'all know, kind of different churches throughout the spring and summer. And it's been really nice just to see what do other churches do, what do other, we've kind of mostly been visiting non-denoms, so, when you go to those non-denominational, in case somebody's listening doesn't know what that is, if you've been we've been in the Presbyterian Church, which has some liturgy to it, although we like the not so traditional side. And then Bill comes from Catholic background. So it is just nice to see and use it as a learning thing. And I always learn every place I go. And I love hearing different speakers, different pastors and teachers as they get up. And so I think that's the same thing going through the holidays, is really appreciating the differences.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple of the Hallmark movies have centered around Jewish faith. I don't know if y'all have watched any of those, but I'm on the Hallmark Christmas thing.
Nope.
And it's been really nice to see that, and their the whole service of lighting the menorah and just appreciating it, because that is true. Like you said, Lord, that's our background of our faith.
Yep, it's foundational. It's totally foundational.
Where we come from our faith standpoint. So I love it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let me see if we have any other. I don't see any other comments out there. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you kind of enjoyed hearing and learning some of that. It's nice to just see what it's all about.
Yes.
And it makes me too. I think I'm going to add back. For a couple of years, I did, and I think it was when the kids were still at home. I don't know. I've let some things slide just because, but doing the Advent candle, I think that is really nice. And when you do that every week, it at least pulls your focus back. And I think that's the point. Pulls the focus back to what's important in the season, that it's not about all the Christmas presents and all the craziness. But that's one thing too. I think there hasn't been as much craziness. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but as I just kind of watch, people are out and doing stuff, but I don't feel the craziness that has been in the past.
I know. Yeah, I was going to say, for us personally, not that Christmas hasn't had meaning before, but with everything that has happened in the past couple of years, it has more meaning. And it's capturing the moment, living in the moment of, it's special for all of us to be together. It's special to be celebrating, and not that Christmas and going to church and learning all of this hasn't been special, but it means more. So, I actually cut back. I used to, probably 5 years ago, I go crazy on the Christmas presents. And I said to my children, well, they're old enough now, they can buy what they want. But outside of that, I don't want to get caught up in the commercialism and the materialism of getting whatever. So I said to my kids, I'm cutting back this year. So, and of course they were fine with that, but there's just a little more meaning. Or maybe I'm more focused because of everything.
Well, and I think that's what it is I think people have turned inward to look at their own families and their own selves, which I think is amazing. And I've been hoping people have been doing that for a number of years. That's because I just think that is so important. And I also think just going back and looking at Black Friday, again, and you both are over the age of 25, so therefore we can remember these.
Just barely.
I had to stop and think of what age Dr. Laura was, so I said that correctly.
I forget
today. But Black Friday specifically meant that the stores were operating in the negative, and some people had a day off and they happened to shop. That's what it originally was. That was the whole concept of it. It was, yay, we're going to have a few more shoppers on this day after Thanksgiving because we've all been closed and hey, we're finally in the black when it comes to an accounting term. But then it became, because I remember when it wasn't the thing that it has turned into in the last probably 2 decades. I mean, I remember going, oh, we could go shopping because we're out of school today and we're at grandma's house and this is a different shopping mall. It turned into craziness. And I think a lot of retailers are suddenly realizing too, hey, if we spread this out, we don't have to deal with the bad press or the bad anything. And I that's what I started seeing, because Walmart's, the Targets, all the big retailers, they did their sales through the entire month of November. It was like, hey, come in and grab this one. If you want this, come and get it. And I love that trend. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's
been been Black Friday the whole month.
I'm not a shopper, so you would never see me at 3:00 in the morning in a tent in front of
Victoria and I did it one year just to be, well, it was purely because we wanted to see what it was all about. And she was old enough, and it was, we spent more time. I don't think we spent a dime other than buying the hot cocoa in the Walmart or in the McDonald's drive-thrus to stay warm. We didn't stay outside. We sat in the car. We would watch everybody line up. It was like, oh, hey, they're unlocking the doors. We'll wait another 5 minutes and then go in. It was fun, but yeah, we just wanted to see it. And we're like, yeah, that's not us.
we had, I grew up in Chicago, and we had Marshall Fields, it got bought out by Macy's, but we had Marshall Fields, which was a big department store. And one year my mom wanted to see, they called them Super Sundays once a month. And huge crowd would get at the front doors. They open them. People would be running through the store. We had to try it once, and it only lasted once.
Oh my gosh!
The experience was crazy, and people are just grabbing stuff off the racks, and and you're just like, okay.
Oh my goodness!
The experience.
Good to go. Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I never heard of that one, but I can imagine the retail probably love that. Like, people so excited. They're waiting outside the doors. It's like, oh
yeah, hundreds of people. Well, you're in the city, so hundreds of people are right in front of the door waiting for those doors to open. And it was actually kind of dangerous, because they're just running the door. So
crazy. Well, ladies, I am so glad that you shared this. Laura, thank you especially for your extra insight, and actually Jennifer, you too, with having actually done that and been part of the readings and all. So as we think about then what Advent is as we go through the rest of the month, let's keep focused on why, the fact that Jesus is the reason for the season, and think about what things we can do to help keep ourselves focused on that, and just continue to smile and just share the love. Let's just share that love and kindness. Bill actually had someone in New Orleans buy his hot chocolate or something. He came up to me and said, you know what? The guy in the line before me paid for my thing. And I said, well, that's passing on that kindness.
Lean it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really cool. So anyway, just think little ways that you can just share that as you go through. And we will be back next week and look forward to that. And we'll continue our All About Christmas. And let's see, any last word, ladies, and we'll sign off.
Merry Christmas if you don't catch us next week, right? That's where I'm at.
That's a good one. I actually wore the pink today just because of the pink candle. So we're halfway. So just saying. But I did want to say, and this is my little, and I'm going to play off of you what you just said, Delinda. Call someone that may be lonely this holiday, may have just lost some family members or something like that, may still be in a situation where they can't get out and about. Please, please, please go through your phone and pick up the phone and have a conversation. So that's the one thing I'm just going to continue to encourage people to do.
That's beautiful. That really is. And it makes such a difference. We don't know what people go through. So for sure. All right. Merry Christmas. See y'all next week. Bye, everybody.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Laura.